Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today with us. And a special gratitude to the organizers of this conference for creating this fruitful space. And yes, welcome to Growing Empathy, Inspiring Animal Ethics through Compassionate Pedagogy. A little bit about us. We're Angie Rengifo. I'm an artist and a master's student. And this is...
And I am Juan. I use they them pronouns, ella in español, and I'm an educator and activist for animal rights.
For the past 3 years and 5 years, respectively, we've been part of the activist collective La Quinta. It's a group that operates eternally in Bogota, Colombia.
So first, what is La Quinta Pata? So La Quinta Pata in English would be the cat's fifth paw, and it gets its name from the expression in Spanish, no le busque la quinta pata al gato, which means don't look for the cat's fifth paw, which reflects the impulse to ask uncomfortable but necessary questions in context of conformity. So we see ourselves as a group that through the arts strives to create compassionate activism that is not re-victimizing. We have published scenes, organized workshops and movie screenings, and participate in fairs and raise funds, which we donate to various organizations and sanctuaries in Colombia. So we also want to invite you to visit our website. Is the one that Angie is projecting, laquintapata.com, where we share everything we do. Today, we want to share a very enriching experience that we had alongside other collectives in March 2023, where we developed an archivist workshop with children.
Before starting our presentation, we would like to propose a very quick exercise. We're going to do a brainstorming session. So if you can scan this QR code or use the link that is already in the chat and write a word or short phrase responding to this question. In what ways am I similar to other animals? And yes, please feel free to write whatever comes to your mind. And here it is, like a little short video to get inspiration. Compassion, soul, order. Thank you. Perfect.
We have laughter, choice and agency, comfort.
Yeah.
Desires, needs, wants, soul, connection.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your participation. And this is exactly the question we asked in March 2023 during our first scene workshop with children from vulnerable communities. So I'm going back. To talk about this topic, we first want to provide some context. What is the animal rights activism scene in Colombia? And after that, we will introduce the collective and explain that we were born as a response to a gap we saw in the current activism landscape. And then we'll talk about the workshop, and after that, we will reflect on what has happened since the workshop and how we can view the experience in retrospect. The animal rights scene in Colombia is small and not as visible or consolidated as in other countries. However, it has gained ground and is developing in an increasingly stronger and more united community. And we could categorize the movement into three types. The first one is single issue activism. A large part of the animal rights movement is centered on legislative reforms to current practices, such as bullfighting, cockfighting, live exports, vivisection, and the sale of living animals in markets.
The second type, we call it hands-on activism and are a large part of the movement too, as they are usually independent initiatives that operate without significant financial support. So we want to mention one of the organizations we often support with donations, Corazón Animal Vegano, Animal Vegan Heart. It is an urban sanctuary and retirement home for animals, especially dogs, but they also care for other species such as rats and pigeons. It is a case we consider unique as it is completely independent initiative, born out of the efforts of a small group of passionate individuals who, despite of the lack of resources, have dedicated themselves to providing a safe and dignified environment for animals who have been abandoned or who are in need of special care, particularly the elderly and disabled animals.
And the abolitionist activism in Colombia is influenced by groups like Anonymous for the Voiceless and centers its activism on using logical arguments and one-on-one education to challenge speciesism. Through actions like Cube of Truth, activists engage the public with fact-based arguments and graphic footage of animal exploitation to spark dialogue. However, this form of activism is often non-intersectional and primarily addressing animal rights without considering how issues like race, class, and gender intersect with animal exploitation. This lack of an intersectional approach can limit the movement's inclusivity, and many activists are now pushing for a more holistic framework that connects animal rights with broader social justice struggles.
So we have found that in Colombia, the common denominators of animal rights activism often include relying on logical arguments, showing explicit violence, and finally targeting mostly privileged audiences. Many activists are mainly interested in presenting rational arguments that appeal to ethics and logic, aiming to convince their audience that animal exploitation is unjustifiable. Explicit images of violence against animals are frequently used as a strategy to elicit a strong emotional reaction and promote change. Also, this type of activism is often directed at urban, middle to upper class audiences. This dynamic can limit the movement's reach, as it does not always consider the realities of more vulnerable populations or the intersections with other forms of oppression. So keeping this context in mind, we would like to share the role of our collective in this broader context and how it has distanced itself from the common denominators that we have mentioned. It is important for us to mention that these forms of activism are essential. Still, as artists, writers, and activists committed to animal liberation through the arts, we created our collective, La Quinta Pata, an artivist collective that centers its efforts on creating spaces where compassion is at the core. So each member of our collective individually engaged in animal rights activism for a number of years. However, our background in the arts and literature led us to look for alternative ways of fighting for the well-being of animals. We understood that there are multiple ways of reaching out to people, and we looked for one that aligned with our values. Rather than convincing with arguments, we wanted to pursue through the arts and foster autonomous critical thinking without offering all the answers ourselves. Rather than providing what we're right, we wanted to show compassion in our interactions with humans and non-humans alike.
For these reasons, we propose 4 main goals for our collective. We want to avoid the re-victimization of animals through our activism. We aim to engage and inspire others through the arts compassionately. And we always try to raise funds for animal sanctuaries through our activism. We do not rely on images of violence and suffering. Showing that commodified animals can enjoy life is a radical challenge to the regimes that render non-human lives invisible. As artists and activists, we take the power of change their relationships with animals after seeing the horror that takes place in slaughterhouses, factory farms, and other industries. We believe that being exposed to these types of images requires a particular disposition from the audience that is really difficult to achieve. In the past, while doing activism with groups like Anonymous for the Voiceless, we experienced how many people on the street were willing to justify the violence they saw on the screens. We concluded that unwilling exposure to violent images will lead to a tribalization of animal suffering, a rejection of vegan activism from the public, and a re-victimization of sentient beings whose suffering and death could end up being normalized. Therefore, we decided not to rely on images of violence and suffering. Additionally, in our society, human beings encounter non-human animals daily in the form of dead and dismembered bodies in the media and the supermarkets. So the daily appearance of the animal in the form of a corpse structures a regime of visibility that renders non-human lives invisible. We see the pork without seeing the pig, and we see the beef without seeing the cow. Consequently, we believe it is more radical to show non-human animals living, enjoying themselves, and perceiving the universe in their complexity.
So secondly, we do not rely on argumentations or debates. We prefer the concreteness of art to think and feel, de sentir y pensar in Spanish, with animals over arguments that may transform non-human lives into just mere arguments or topics of conversation. The history of Western thinking has privileged abstraction, mind, reason over concreteness, body, and emotions. This hierarchy, in turn, has justified the exploitation of animals, women, people of color, people with disabilities. Although we agree that it's important to have clear reasons that ground our ethical stances and that sharing these reasons with others can have a meaningful impact on their behavior, we prefer to conduct a type of activism that does not reify the mind, body, reason, emotion dichotomies. We seek ways of speaking and doing that do not transform non-human suffering into mere topics of conversation, something that most vegans experience when talking about their ethical stances. This is why we do not rely on argumentation and debates as our main way of approaching the animal question. We prefer to engage and inspire people through zines, movie screenings, and compassionate workshops.
And last but not least, we do not center our efforts on measuring the outcomes of our activism. Rather than measuring the outcomes of our actions, thus following an authoritarian logic of what counts as effective, we see value in each interaction, workshop, and donation. In other words, we do not think that the value of what we do is something that should be measured. While we do raise funds for animal sanctuaries and we donate all of our earnings to help them take care of animals, we have decided that the amount of funds raised or the work-profit ratio is not the primary goal or justification for our activism. In this way, we move away from authoritarian conceptualizations of what is good, effective, and desirable. Additionally, we aim to reach diverse audiences rather than centering on those who are privileged. This means educated, wealthy, and able-bodied adults. We believe in the value of engaging underrepresented communities. That's why our main engagement format is the zines, as they are an accessible form of sharing ideas. So with this set of principles in mind, we have designed different workshops, roundtables, movie screenings, and reading groups. And today we will share with you all one of these workshops, how we designed it, what principle we had in mind, and the audience that we reach and the outcomes of the workshop.
So our workshop is framed in the movement of the community pot. So to understand where our workshop took place, we need to explain what a community pot or olla comunitaria means. Ollas comunitarias is a common term that refers to organizing collective kitchens where volunteers prepare and distribute meals to anyone in need, regardless of their background or political affiliation. During the pandemic, for instance, the ollas also became spaces for mutual support and solidarity, where individuals from diverse backgrounds came together, working side by side to support each other and challenge systems of inequality. As acts of social resistance, these kitchens symbolize the power of community organizing and demonstrated how collective action can offer immediate relief while also promoting long-term social change.
An example of a community pot is La Olla Vegana Popular, the popular vegan pot in Spanish. A collective that provides itinerant vegan meals, ollas comunitarias, to marginalized communities in Bogotá. La Olla Vegana Popular works with Escuela Popular Recreo Sueños. It's an interdisciplinary school working with children from marginalized neighborhoods to provide vegan meals and anti-speciesist education to children. They have worked with a group of children between the ages of 5 to and 17 years old from the Santa Fe neighborhood in Bogotá. Santa Fe is a neighborhood under the legal title of Tolerance Zone, which in our context means that the city has designed it as a place where sexual work is acceptable.
So alongside La Olla Vegana Popular and Escuela Popular Recreo Sueños, we developed the workshop with the children in March 2023. So when we were thinking about the workshop format, we had a goal in mind, inspiring animal ethics through compassionate pedagogy. And we did it through the question, how am I similar to other animals? So for us, it was radically important to support children in thinking by themselves about what situations can inspire us to rethink our relationship with other animals. So as a group, we could recognize that we share far more with other animals than just this planet.
In the first part of the workshop, we introduce the audience to several short videos collected from social media in which different animals from different species, like the video we showed in the beginning of the presentation, portrayed what in the West we have considered human characteristics. We share videos of other animals playing with each other, lying, showing affection, and helping each other. Through questions, the children were the ones who brought up how we share these characteristics with other species.
In the second part of the workshop, we provided the children with a diverse range of materials that they could use to materialize the responses to our question. Through collage, drawing, painting, and writing, they express in their individual and unique way how we are more similar to other animals than we think.
And in the third and last part, while the kids were eating lunch provided by La Olla Vegana Popular, We shared the work done with everybody and socialized how they felt afterwards. If their perception towards the animals has changed, how they see their relation with animals in their environment, and how these new ideas can be applied in their daily lives.
So in these pictures, you can see some of the works the children did. During the Q&A, if you want to see more of the final scene, we can show you. We're happy to do it. So as a collective, a great part of our impact comes after the happening when we organize an event like this. The actual event can develop beyond time and media in enriching ways. So this is a digital publication of the workshop results. Here you can see all the works the kids did and a couple of texts that La Quinta Pata and Escuela Recreo Sueños wrote as an introduction, and we're planning to print some copies. This is also a guide for anyone who wants to reproduce this workshop.
Animales y Sociedad is an animal rights publication by the Centro de Estudios Abolicionistas por la Liberación Animal, the Center for Abolitionist Studies for Animal Liberation. Its latest edition from November 2023 aims to highlight various animal rights pedagogical initiatives carried out in different contexts, all with the goal of educating for animal liberation. Animales y Sociedad invited our collective to contribute an article to this edition, where we talk about our workshop and provided a step-by-step guide so that others can replicate the workshop in their own communities.
So one key takeaway was the importance of self-reflection. The children could connect emotionally and cognitively with animals, recognizing qualities like empathy, playfulness, and cooperation that we often consider uniquely human. We also saw the value of creative expression in providing children with tools to process and articulate their ideas. The diverse materials we provided allowed each child to express their thoughts personally and meaningfully, creating a space for individuality within a collective framework.
This was an exercise of nurturing. Although its impact may not be easily quantifiable, we are confident that it made a big difference. We also believe these activities set an important precedent for animal rights activism in Colombia, as it not only reached beyond the usual circles of activism, but also engaged people who are often looked down upon in a patronizing way. So yes, we think everyone is capable of ethical reflection. And thank you for your attention. And we are now open to any questions you may have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angie and Ruana. We'll come to the question and answer session. Any challenges you faced and how did you tackle with those challenges? Do you think it is easier to work with this age group rather than young adults and adults? I think it's about 3 questions there.
Yes, the challenges, I think primarily were that just some technical challenges like find a place and right place and time to do this workshop, because we have been working with the other collectives for a while. So we had communication with them, and we already knew that these children had like these approaches to anti-speciesism before. So the children were like really accepting this kind of workshop. So I think that there were any challenges in that aspect for the moment. And yeah, I think that for this kind of workshop, working with children is like really easy in comparison to other kinds of public, because normally children are really empathic, and yes, I think that they don't have all of the things that we have lost with our adulthood, you know.
Whether you think a cross-species form of solidarity is possible, whether solidarity can take place at the interface between humans and other animals, and even maybe between two varieties of non-human animals.
Thank you so much for your question. Yes, they do. And something awesome out of social media is that we have more record of those type of connections of solidarity that we see constantly, animals helping each other, and solidarity has also a purpose. So we help each other in order to survive together. So some of the videos that we showed to the children were, for example, a bird just rescuing another bird, a bird to a bird. I hope you understand the difference of the animals I'm saying. One of them was rescuing the other, and they were the ones connecting, like that's solidarity. Or for example, when a little bird was taking some hair from a dog to create the little nest. And those are also ways of solidarity. So yes, I think so.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Angie and Juana. I really enjoyed this. And the programs you all told us about seem really lovely. This is a really great approach. I did want to raise one concern that came up as I was thinking about the program, particularly about the decision not to show images of violence towards animals. When we're talking about small children, that does seem very appropriate to me, if only to avoid traumatizing the children. But I worry that a broader approach that refrains from showing images of violence to animals will allow people to maintain false beliefs, which are very easy to hold on to, beliefs to the effect that farmed animals are treated well and have lives worth living. I think it's very easy to, at least I grew up thinking that all was well on the farm. I'm not sure where that idea comes from, if it's from movies or children's books or the labels on animal products. But I think many people believe that things aren't so bad. And I worry that images of violence to animals is necessary to dispel those beliefs. So I wonder what you think about that.
Yes, so for us was also super important to mention that all these type of activism are important. So Angie and I, for instance, met in Anonymous for the Voiceless, where we were showing like explicit images to other animals. And that's the way that personally I learned about animal farming. And that was the click that made in my mind. So we consider it is important. However, we also consider that it's important to have a different range of activism, and all of them are necessary, because we understand that in order to get to the largest amount of people, we need different mediums. So one of those is like showing explicit images that we consider important, but also through compassionate mediums. However, for example, one of our zines, we named it Mamalia, and those were little postcards, and each postcard had two sides. In one side, we showed the relationship between mother mammal, and their baby. And on the other side, we showed how the different industries have broke those relationships and explain. And we had something, and that's why we say we don't measure our process because we, for example, experienced once in our latest fairs that we assisted, someone crying with that scene, and we were like, yes, that we had one. So maybe we don't measure how much we sell, but how much we get. And that, however, was really emotional. So we found, for example, in that scene, a bridge between compassionate behavior and also showing what is happening. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it certainly does. Thank you.
I also wanted to know that when we do activism, we have a really strict abolitionist stance. We do not talk about welfareism whatsoever. Is not our point. So when we talk with people, like they know what we think about. Like our stance is not welfarist. So yeah, it's important too.
Great. Thank you very much.